Today's presentation is going to be something a little bit different than we've done before. I'm going to be showing a full process of a drawing using the D-Brush set that I've recently released. So you'll get to see a lot of the different features of the brushes and how I use them in my process. So we're going to start out with the standard setup here. I usually have a layer set up for the sketches, and then I'll have another layer for all of the inks and the colors. I'm going to go ahead and scale this down so I get more of the screen showing. I usually start out by drawing a lot of quick little sketches just to get the idea of what I want to draw. I'm going to go with something a little bit different. We're going to start with bunch of round shapes here just to kind of get a silhouette of what I intend to draw. It's good to work with silhouettes because you can get a good layout of your character or whatever you're drawing without having to worry about the details yet. If the silhouette is appealing to you, then you can move it forward with the details. The character that I had an idea of had kind of a pulled back hairstyle and then a messy bun right at the end of her hair. I wanted to do kind of a torso based drawing of this character. I'm kind of thinking that she will have some earphones on and maybe she's listening to them. We will just build up on a few of these that I see already. I kind of think I like the side view on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and start fleshing that one out. I'll lower the opacity of the layer there, and then we'll start a new layer on top of it. Now this first brush that I used was the hard brush. It was the oil flat. And now I usually do all of my detailed sketching with the lines using the detail brush. I like this one because it can blend as I paint, and I can also paint out by using the transparency option there. So it's a pretty fast brush. Everything that you do on it blends with itself. We'll go ahead and start doing some of the features. Just loosely right now because we don't want to get into too many details on it. As I'm sketching through it, I'm kind of adding a little bit in regards to her clothing. actually like the way this layout is going forward, so we'll proceed with this one. As you can see, I use the transparency option there. It keeps all of the brush settings that you have, but it allows you to paint in and out without having to even change to an eraser. I find that very useful when I'm doing any kind of line work or sketching. Another good thing that I do while I'm drawing is mirror the image. It'll allow you to see things in a different perspective. You might notice some of the proportions being off or something else going on with the image after you've looked at it for a while. Just adding a few details to her headphones here, just to kind of get a general idea of what I'm going to do during the inking phase. Wanted to give them a little bit of a retro feel. The big earmuffs on the inside. Down here I made it sort of an open vest. Draw in some extra details for the zipper once we get there. Then I'm going to continue this kind of a fur edge. Behind her will continue the other side. I didn't sketch out a lot of details, and that allows you to kind of evolve the artwork as you're moving forward. So what I'm seeing here is kind of a big belt buckle. you can see, I'm painting in and out of a lot of different areas just to try to come up with a different pose for the hand. Where we can try different things along the process. Adding a few details here and there that I already see. I'll finalize those during the inking phase. I was going to give her a few bracelets, but I think I'm going to go ahead and add a watch instead. Again, these are pretty loose, so you don't have to really go through with too many details. Just want to get the idea down, and then we'll start moving deeper into the artwork. To pay a little more attention to the face as I'm getting closer to it, so that I can have the character style that I want. When you're working with a brush like this, it's kind of like sculpting out the light and the dark rather than just drawing lines. So you're adding to it and you're subtracting just to get the form that you have in mind. In a way that kind of evolves as you paint with it. Then when we go back with the lines, you have more of an idea of what you're trying to achieve. top of the hair, I just wanted it to be pulled back into a bun. So we'll draw a bunch of lines indicating the flow of the hair and the strands. They all come together in a center point here, so I'll let everything kind of radiate from that area. Of course, the earphones go over the head, so we'll raise that up just a little bit. I use a cell shade style in the majority of my work, so a lot of this is going to be hinted when we get to the detail portion. If you remember, we've been working in the mirror mode. So once I switch back, we should be able to see anything that appears to us as off. You can do any kind of corrections before we proceed to the next step. Once I get to this position, I can then add another layer and introduce a few extra details before I go to the inking phase, or I can just do it during the inking phase. I wanted to concentrate a little bit more on the hands before I did that. Go ahead and add a few extra details here and there just to give me an idea. That way I'm not guessing too much as I finalize the line work. There's one more extra thing that I wanted to add because her to be holding both sides of the earphones. So I'll go ahead and add, this will be more of a shadow behind her once we get to the final coloring phases. I want to go ahead and put that in there so I remember. Okay, so there we go. We'll now move on to the next phase, using the different set of tools to finalize the inking portion of this illustration. Now from this point, I usually take the sketch into a new document, but since we're working with something fairly loose, I'm going to go ahead and delete the previous silhouettes. Then we're going to go ahead and move forward with increasing the scale using this button here, pulling down proportionately. And I'll align it in the center. From here I take my whole sketch layer and I just drop the opacity. And we can start inking. From here I draw on an ink layer, which is a vector layer, that way I'm able to modify it. And then I usually use my line brush, or I will use the pen brush that is set to soft. Now, the difference between these is that when you work with the soft brush, or the soft pen, it's a real smooth line, and there's no texture. If you use the D-pen line, it has a slight texture to it, similar to using a brush, an ink brush. So I want a little style with this illustration, so I'm going to go with texture this time. We'll use the D-pen line, and we'll have the texture for all of the ink, and I usually use a 20 point, which is by default on that brush. So these are very smooth. They allow you to get very clean lines without having to redraw each one of them. So it makes the workflow very efficient. I tend to like using heavier lines, just to make it stand out. You can see you can get some very smooth strokes on each one of these lines that you produce. look at the L, that's the D pin line, and then you look at the D, that's the D pin line detail. So the detail isn't as smooth, but you're able to do very quick strokes using the same perimeters as the D pin line. And we'll go back to the standard. I'll be able to produce some very smooth lines here. Move on to the headphones. Now, since this is a vector layer, I can go and select my eraser and then just click there. It will remove any of those intersecting pieces. That is really helpful when you're working with anything that is both inorganic and organic. Because you can intersect any of those lines and then take them out. If you notice, you will have to go to your eraser options and it will be under vector eraser. You want to choose the second for the intersecting lines. This only works if you're on a vector layer, so just remember that. I use that feature a whole lot on erasing a lot of strands that intersect in hair. But since she has a pulled back bun, we're not going to need to do that today. There's her hair. Now I will use the detail pen to quickly and efficiently make all of these strands that are a little bit messy. I want to be able to work very quickly and just let our hands create all of the different curls. while I have this brush chosen, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of her jacket. Now these are just a little bit longer strands, but I'll use the similar technique as I did with her hair. I'll go ahead and add some of the detail that I indicated during the sketching phase. Okay, back to the liner. It's creating some folds as it pulls into the top of her jacket there. I really like working on the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus because of its quick pin, and it really registers all of the pressure levels that you have, so it works very well with this brush. So I can get real small ink strokes, and it shows a little bit more of the texture than I do if I really press down on it. In a way, it acts just like a standard, like a micron brush. I usually use those when I'm working traditionally. I'm not going to zoom in all the way because you really don't need to get that close, but we're going to be using the standard detail brush for the zipper. I'm just going to give an indication of it. So you can see I just did the little pieces on the edge. Now I'm working on the pieces on the inside. Something like that. We'll go back to the liner and we'll fill in some of the extra details here. Now move back to the detail, and then we will add all of the extra fur that went to the bottom of her jacket. there's the line work. We'll go ahead and make a few adjustments here and there. You don't need to connect all of the lines because of the options that Clip Studio has. So we'll leave some of them open. Okay, now that we have the lines, we'll go into the coloring. So I now hide my sketch layer. There are different ways that you can color, but usually I go with a simulated kind of a cell shade where everything is very crisp and clean. So in order to do that, you can either use the regular pen, you can go with the soft or the flat. If you wanted to do anything that's more soft, you can go with any of the oils. So I have the soft and then I have the flat oil. And then for any detail later, I go in with the airbrush to add any form of highlights or any kind of different lighting. So for now, I'm just going to use the basic fill tool. We'll start on the color layer and then I will choose some of the base colors to fill in the different areas. So I wanted to have a little bit of a darker skin for her. All you have to do is just tap for it to color those areas. For her hair, I wanted it to be more of a dark brown. So we'll do the same there. What I have is a closed gap option set for my fill tool. I recommend doing that because if you have any open areas like in all of the fur or the hair, it'll go ahead and fill those areas without having you close in your line work. And another tip is you can click on any open area and then drag, and it'll go ahead and fill in any areas that it touches based on the initial color that you sampled with the first click. So if I drag my cursor over this area, it's not going to fill her skin. It's only going to fill the transparent areas because that's what I chose first. So it's a real quick and easy, very efficient way to work with all of the fill tools in Clip Studio. I'll go back and do a little bit of cleanup, some of the areas that it didn't fill. Now I wanted to have her a very bright colored fingernail polish. And I wanted to have a pretty bright colored dress. I'm going to go with probably a white here. Change it here in a little bit. We're just trying out a few color combinations at the moment. See how quick and easy it is to fill all of those areas just by clicking and dragging. little bit neutral, but there's enough contrast in the different areas for it to stand out. I'll come back with my line tool just to touch up a few areas. For the color, I'm going to show you two ways that I work with it, just for the sake of showing the brush itself. So from here, you can work with the detail brush or the soft brush, or the flat or the soft here on the oil. Now, what we're going to do first is start with the flat, and I'll show you how that works. So this brush here, it blends as you paint. So if I were to add all of the shadows here with their skin color, you would see that I can paint in all of the darks and then kind of blend as I go, painting in and out using the same transparency tool. That works if you want to go for a more painterly style. It allows you to create a lot of your own texture during the painting process. As I said at the beginning of the video, I usually go for a more sharp, cel-shaded style. Now you can do this with any of the tools really, based on how you want to work, but I usually go for the soft pen. And then I draw in all of the areas that I want the shadows to touch. At this point, I just think to myself which area the light is going to touch, and then I draw in the shadow. And sometimes I will increase my brush size so that I can go in and fill in some of the areas. And you need to be mindful where the shadows will hit if something else is in front of the figure or anything else in the scene. This is a multiply layer. Set a new layer and turn it into multiply. I usually use the same color. That way everything has more of a natural harmony. If I need to change it, then I will. I try to keep things as efficient as possible, because there are other ways to make the layers rather than just using multiply and choosing the color, which I may show in a future video. For a hair on the back, I will use a bigger brush, and then I'm just going to create kind of a hint of how the curls are in relation to the light and shadow. I'll use a similar technique as when I was drawing the lines. I'll use the same procedure with the fur coat. Now from here we can go ahead and start filling in some of the areas that I sectioned out. You notice there is a ring when you're using the soft brush. So an easy way to fix that is to just correct your area scaling. Make it go a little bit higher and it'll fill in those areas. Just click and drag. It'll only color in the areas that you sampled. From this point we have the main color. I will go in with another on the shadow layer and I will color it in offset. So sometimes I will go through, kind of color an area just to see how it will react to the chosen color. So in this case I'm using a very light pink for all of the heavy shadows. These colors are pretty close, that's why it's filling in. We have a different color margin there. I don't want to mess with the settings since this is just a small area. So I'll just go through with my brush and fill that in. Now I noticed a few areas that I didn't fill in previously, so we'll go ahead and fix those. Now what I would like to do is use just the basic blend. It's a blur. And we'll go ahead and soften some of these harsh shadows. Mainly in some of her features so they're not as sharp, as harsh. I will do the same thing to the secondary shadow. Now what I like to do is add a little bit of a tint color just to give it a little more depth, a little more color. And we will select the color layer. We'll do a color gamut selection. I will choose her skin. And then I have a basic layer here as a tint, which I will add a little bit more color to her. This time we will be using the airbrush. And I will use the soft version. And we're going to make it a little bit bigger. And I'll just add a little bit extra color here. And I'll do the same thing, just to lighten a little bit where the light comes from. Do the same thing with her suit. Add a little bit more to her jacket here. And same thing for her hair. Now I'll add a little bit of flair to the ink by blurring it out a little bit. I created an action for that so it does it for me. I use it very frequently. Then I really like the green, so I'm going to create an outline. Behind everything and bring back the blur. On the highlight layer, I tend to use the basic oil brush for detail. I set it to glow dodge. And we're just going to create some highlights based on the light source. I want to add a little bit extra. So we'll use the airbrush again, soft. I'll make her watch glow just a little bit. We'll take it above the whole character. And we'll see how the dodge glow looks. I mean the glow dodge. Now I want to add a rim light. To add a little bit more to the character. I want to add a little bit more. We're going to make a new layer. Glow dodge. Put a pretty sharp reflected light as a rim light around her. Maybe she's in a spotlight somewhere listening to her music. Now for the last portion, we're just going to add a little background. Now finally, we're going to add a background. I want to go with a dark charcoal so that it sets her from the background. Use the gradient tool, kind of get a little bit of a color transition behind her. And above that, glow dodge layer. I'm going to use the soft pen. And then we're going to go ahead and glow that one. I'm going to bump it up just a little bit more than my default. Now I want to try something a little bit different. We're going to use the circles. Behind her and then mask off some of it. hide everything. This will give me the opportunity to work with the layer and use some of my fill tool preferences. Set this one to multiply. There we go. This illustration pretty much used all of our tools, except for the skin. If I wanted to use this one, I would go through and add a few extra highlights to the character. So I would go into maybe the highlight, or I would make a new highlight, go dodge, and then I would just hit the skin just a little bit with it. You want to use it sparingly. You don't want it to really overpower anything. But it adds just a little bit of texture, especially if you're working with something like a porous skin, or maybe on the jacket. It just gives it a little something extra. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. You can find the brush set on my website. It's currently on sale. And I would appreciate any comments that you have. If you purchase it and make use of it, go ahead and send over any illustrations that you make. I would love to see them.